Ever catch yourself, like, analyzing a friend's problem and you think, man, maybe I should have been a therapist?
Haha,
It's
yeah.
like everyone's an armchair psychologist sometimes,
It's
right?
true. Everyone's got theories about what makes people tick.
Exactly. But today, we're ditching the comfy armchair and actually diving into what it takes to be a psychologist for real.
Buckle up.
We've got some seriously cool info from RoleCatcher for this deep dive.
Oh, yeah. RoleCatcher, they've got all the goods. Career guides, interview tips. They even have AI tools, which is kind of wild.
Wall's right. So we're talking separating those romanticized ideas about psychology
Yeah.
from what it actually takes day to day.
Love it. And you found some really interesting stuff in their resources.
I did my best. But okay, let's start basic. What does a psychologist actually do? Is it all just like dimly lit rooms and nodding thoughtfully?
Honestly, it's way more dynamic than people think. The RoleCatcher Guide really emphasizes that it's not just about mental illness, it's life challenges.
Hmm.
Bereavement, relationship issues, even things like helping families after, say, domestic violence, which is heavy stuff.
Wow, that's intense. So we're talking the full spectrum of human experience here.
Mm,
And I'm guessing the clients are just as diverse, right? It's not all
yes.
one-on-one sessions.
You got it. The guide talks about working with individuals, couples, families, even groups. There's no one-size-fits-all in this profession.
Makes sense. So psychologists can't just be a master of the mind. They've got to be a social chameleon too, I guess.
You could say that. And when RoleCatcher gets into the core skills, the top one surprised me. It wasn't what I expected.
Okay, hit me with it. What's the most important skill for a psychologist?
Social perceptiveness.
Really? More than like knowing all the different types of therapy?
Way more, apparently. It's ranked at 71%, which is huge.
71%. So what, like acing those psych exams isn't enough? I got to be charming too.
Well, it's not just about being charming. Think of it like this. A client walks in, maybe says they're fine, but their body language screams frustration. A psychologist with high social perceptiveness picks up on those cues instantly. It's about reading between the lines, building trust.
Ah, so it's deeper than just surface level friendliness. You're like a detective of emotions.
Exactly. Another interesting one, persuasion. RoleCatcher had it at 54%, which kind of busts that myth that therapy is just passive listening.
Oh, there's some strategic influence happening. I like it.
Oh, yeah. You're guiding clients toward healthier thoughts and behaviors, right? Sometimes that takes a bit of skillful persuasion, especially with ingrained patterns or if there's resistance.
This is giving me a much more nuanced picture of what psychologists really do. It's not just book smarts. It's putting it all into practice in a way that actually works for each person.
Exactly. And that's where the whole career path thing gets really interesting.
Okay, yes, let's talk about that because we've covered the what of the skills, but what about the day-to-day reality?
Yeah.
Do most psychologists just work in those private practice offices?
Not even close. RoleCatcher has a whole section on work environments, and it's honestly as diverse as the clients. We're talking hospitals, clinics, private practice, schools.
Whoa, so it's not just choosing psychology, it's choosing your adventure within psychology.
Mm.
But okay, that's a lot of options. What should someone be thinking about to find the right fit?
Well, just picture the difference between, say, the fast-paced intensity of a hospital versus the maybe slower, more independent vibe of a private practice. Finding an environment that jives with your personality is huge for work-life balance.
That makes total sense. It's not just the work itself, it's where you do the work. And it's easy to romanticize the whole helping people thing, but reality check, this is a career, not a quick fix.
Mm.
And speaking of reality checks, RoleCatcher doesn't shy away from mentioning this job can be seriously emotionally demanding.
Oh, absolutely. Remember those diverse challenges we talked about? You're dealing with people's deepest struggles, sometimes daily. Resilience is key, and that's not something you learn overnight. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
So true. It's not enough to just be empathetic and perceptive.
Yeah.
You got to have the resilience to avoid burnout.
100%. And speaking of long-term commitments, RoleCatcher is big on continuous learning. They call it knowledge and learning. And basically, the learning never truly ends in this field.
So even with a PhD, homework never really goes away.
Pretty much. But it makes sense when you think about it. The human mind is constantly evolving. New research is coming out. To stay on top of your game, you got to stay updated.
Okay, that tracks. But what does that actually look like? How does a busy psychologist actually stay updated in the real world?
Conferences are a big one. And I'm not talking boring lectures, but chances to connect with other people in the field, talk about the latest research.
So like psych conferences are where the cool kids hang out.
Something like that. The guide also mentions following psychologists on social media, getting those bite-sized insights.
Wait, hold on. So scrolling through therapy memes on Twitter is professional development now.
Haha, not exactly. It's about finding reputable sources, people who spark new ideas and offer fresh perspectives. It's about curating your feed, you know?
Makes sense. Finding those nuggets of wisdom amidst all the online chaos. But okay, we've talked about staying sharp, but getting there in the first place. RoleCatcher mentions a lot of education, like 8 to 12 years.
Yeah, it's a big commitment, no sugarcoating that.
But what happens after those years, after the degree? What makes someone stand out as a psychologist?
That's where specialization comes in. Being a psychologist isn't just one title anymore. The guide lists a ton of specializations. Finding your niche.
Ooh, that's super interesting. Any examples that really highlight how varied this field can be?
Well, there's educational psychology. Those are the folks working within schools, helping students with learning stuff, social stuff, that kind of thing.
So it's recognizing that psychology goes way beyond those individual therapy sessions.
For sure. But no matter what you specialize in, one thing's crucial to actually launching that career.
Don't keep me in suspense. What is it?
Acing that job interview.
Of course. You could have all the knowledge in the world, but if you can't articulate it, connect with the hiring manager.
It's game over. But luckily, RoleCatcher has a whole section dedicated to interview prep. And it's not just about, like, sounding smart.
Okay, spill the tea. What impresses during a psychology interview?
Showcasing those core skills we were talking about earlier, social perceptiveness, persuasion, building rapport.
So even if you've aced every psych textbook, you could still bomb the interview if you haven't honed those people skills.
Pretty much, that social perceptiveness thing, it all comes back around. But now, for the part that I'm both excited and kind of wary of.
You talk AI, right?
Yeah.
That's where things get futuristic. Because RoleCatcher has AI for CV building, even interview practice, which blows my mind.
It's pretty wild. Imagine. The AI looks at a job description and tells you exactly what skills to emphasize on your CV.
No more guessing about keywords or tailoring everything for each job. That's amazing.
Right. And then there's the AI-powered interview practice. You record yourself answering questions, and it analyzes everything, gives feedback. It's like having a personal coach in your pocket.
Okay, that's both incredibly cool and slightly terrifying. But seriously, can technology really help someone land a job in such a human-centered field?
It's a good question. And it's important not to oversell it. As amazing as these tools are, they're still just tools.
Right.
They can help, but your own dedication, your skills, that passion you have, that's what truly matters in the end.
Appreciate you bringing us back down to earth. It's easy to get swept up in the shiny new tech. Okay, we've covered a lot of the different hats psychologists wear, those key skills, continuous learning, even how AI is shaking things up.
Yeah.
But there's this one thing that's been bugging me.
I'm listening.
They don't really mention if psychologists themselves use the AI in their practice. And in 2024, with all this tech, shouldn't that be a thing?
Huh, you're right. They don't mention it. That's interesting.
Right. So, dear listener, here's a thought. Could AI be a tool not just for therapy seekers, but for the therapist too? It's something to ponder.
It really makes you think about the future of therapy, doesn't it? Like, are we going to see AI therapists someday?
Right. It's a whole other discussion. But for now, let's stick with the human psychologist. We've talked about what it takes to become one. But what about the actual career path? You finish all that education, you nail the interview. What does entry level actually look like?
Okay, so RoleCatcher actually gives us a little peek into those early years with their career stages section. They say a typical day for an entry-level psychologist is super hands-on, focused on building those core skills.
Okay, I'm curious. What does hands-on actually mean in this context?
Well, you're not jumping straight into leading solo therapy sessions right off the bat. It's more like you're doing a lot of initial client assessments.
So like gathering information, figuring out what's going on.
Exactly. You're getting their background, their concerns, the whole picture. And alongside that, you'd be shadowing more senior psychologists, observing sessions, maybe co-facilitating groups, that kind of thing.
So it's a good mix of direct client interaction, but also learning from the pros, seeing how it's done in the real world.
Yeah, like a mentorship kind of thing, which makes a lot of sense to bridge that gap between studying psychology and actually practicing it.
Totally. So you've cut your teeth at the entry level, you've learned the ropes. What's next? How does a junior psychologist level up their game?
That's where you get to spread your wings a bit more, take on more responsibility. RoleCatcher talks about how junior psychologists start leading their own individual and group sessions. But they also do this interesting thing administering and interpreting psychological assessments.
Hold on, psychological assessment. That sounds kind of cool. We got to dig into that. What are we talking about here?
Right. It's like they have these specialized tools to evaluate all sorts of things, a client's cognitive abilities, their personality, even their emotional state.
So it's not just those questionnaires like on a scale of 1 to 10, how stressed are you?
Sometimes, yeah, but it can get way more complex. Think tasks, observing behaviors, even analyzing drawings in some cases. It's about getting a complete picture of someone.
That's fascinating. So a junior psychologist might give these assessments, score them, and then use that info to actually guide their treatment.
You got it. And that's where the critical thinking comes in. It's not just about like checking boxes, it's about understanding those results within the context of someone's life, their experiences.
It's like putting a puzzle together.
Yeah.
You're gathering all these pieces to get the full picture. Okay, so we've gone from observing to leading sessions, analyzing data. Sounds like a steep learning curve. What happens when you reach senior psychologist level? Is it all managerial stuff then?
It's a mix. RoleCatcher highlights a few things. Mentoring is a big one. Senior psychologists often supervise junior staff, share their knowledge.
Ah, so you're not just shaping the lives of your clients anymore, you're shaping the next generation of therapists. Pretty cool.
Right. And they might also be designing and running whole treatment programs, especially for clients with more complex needs. Or they might work with community organizations, advocate for mental health resources.
Wow, so you start by helping individuals, and you could end up influencing whole communities. That's amazing. And, it makes me think back to AI again.
Oh, how so?
Imagine using AI to help with those bigger picture things, like analyzing community health data to see where resources are most needed, or developing interventions for specific groups.
Right. Or even in research, AI could analyze data from tons of therapy sessions, finding patterns and what treatments work best that we might miss otherwise. It could totally revolutionize how we approach mental health.
It's like we're standing at the edge of something huge, and AI is leading the way. But let's bring it back to the individual level for a sec. RoleCatcher goes deep on all the different psychology specializations, reminding us that psychologist isn't one size fits all.
So true. It's not even just about choosing like kids versus adults. It gets way more specific than that.
So what were some of the specializations that stood out to you?
Well, we talked about educational psychology, but I thought health psychology was super interesting too.
Health psychologists, what do they focus on?
They work at the intersection of mental and physical health. So they might help people cope with a chronic illness, adjust to life after a big medical event, or even help people build healthier habits.
That's such an important connection. Our minds and bodies are so intertwined, but we often treat them separately.
Exactly. And having a psychologist who gets that connection, that mind-body link, can make all the difference.
For sure. It shows how psychology goes way beyond just traditional therapy.
Absolutely. Oh, and another one that caught my eye, forensic psychology.
Ooh, forensic psychology. Now that sounds intense. What's that all about?
So these are the psychologists who work within the legal system, the criminal justice system.
Are we talking like criminal profiling, evaluating if someone's fit to stand trial?
Yep, all that. They might provide expert testimony in court, work with victims of crime, deal with some pretty heavy stuff.
Wow, that takes a certain kind of person
Yeah,
to stay objective in those situations.
right. It's a really demanding specialization, but so crucial for a just legal system.
Totally agree. It's amazing, really. We've gone from helping kids in schools to the complexities of the court system, and it's all psychology.
It just shows you the range of this field.
Speaking of range, let's talk about actually landing a job in this field. We've covered the education, the skills, all of that. But how does RoleCatcher actually help you get from point A to point B?
That's where their platform goes beyond just info and gives you actual tools.
You're talking about their whole job searching section, right? With the AI features to help your application stand out.
Exactly. Remember that AI CV builder we talked about? It doesn't just make a resume for you, it scans job descriptions, figures out what employers want.
And then it basically sprinkles those magic keywords throughout your CV. That's genius.
Right. It's like having your own personal resume writer. But it's not just keywords. It looks at your writing style, the formatting, everything. It's all about making sure your application grabs attention for the right reasons.
Because, let's be real, applying for jobs online can be soul-crushing sometimes. You just feel lost in the crowd.
Totally. But with these AI tools, you're not just another applicant. You've got that edge.
I love that. So you've got the AI-powered resume, you're feeling good. What else does RoleCatcher have?
Well, there's their jobs section, which keeps all your applications organized in one place. No more like a million tabs open trying to find that one
It's
email.
like a personal assistant for your job search.
Exactly. And if you go for their premium service, Copilot AI, things get even cooler.
Ooh, okay. Tell me more about Copilot.
It gives you all these AI-powered insights about the jobs you're looking at. Imagine knowing the salary range for similar roles in your city or reading reviews from people who actually worked at those companies.
So no more applying to a company totally blind.
Exactly. And get this, it can even check your social media to see if it vibes with the companies you're interested in.
Okay, that's next level. They really have thought of everything.
Pretty much. And for people who hate interviews, Copilot has these mock interview simulations. You practice with AI, and it analyzes your answers, gives you feedback.
You tell me I can practice for a job interview with a robot.
Basically, it's a safe space to get comfortable, try different things, no pressure of a real interview.
Honestly, I wish I had that when I was starting my career. It would save me a lot of stress.
Right. But that's the thing about technology, it keeps getting better. And in this case, it's not just about getting a and Y job. It's about helping people find fulfilling careers in a field that matters.
Love that. Okay, so we've covered the stages of a psychologist's career, those wild specializations, and how RoleCatcher is like a secret weapon for job hunting. But there was this one other thing in the materials.
What's that?
It was about those alternative titles for psychologists. Because as we've seen, this field is way bigger than just therapy.
Right, totally. They had a whole list of these alternative titles that someone with a psych background might have.
And some of them are pretty surprising. Like, did you know you could be a kinesiologist?
A kinesiologist. Wow, yeah, that's not one I would have guessed.
Right. Totally caught me off guard. So for those who don't know, kinesiology is all about body movement, how it impacts our health. Think physical therapy, athletic training, even designing workspaces to be more ergonomic.
Ah, okay, now I see the connection. Understanding people's behavior and what motivates them would be huge in those roles. Because helping someone stick to a rehab plan or change their lifestyle, that takes more than just the technical know-how. You got to get the psychology of it right. Habits, motivation, all that.
Exactly. It just shows you how versatile a psychology background can be. It's not just about those clinical settings. You could be out there helping people improve their physical well-being. Pretty cool.
It really shared the mind-body connection, too, which we touched on earlier. A kinesiologist with a psych background could bring a whole new level of understanding to their work.
Totally. They're not just treating the physical symptoms, but looking at the whole person. That could lead to some amazing outcomes for patients.
It all comes back to the power of a psychology degree. It gives you this incredible skill set, communication, problem-solving, critical thinking. Those are valuable no matter where you end up.
So true. It's like a solid foundation you can build anything on. And RoleCatcher actually had some good advice for people interested in those less traditional paths. They're big on networking, building connections in your desired field.
Which makes sense. Even if your psych degree isn't the typical route, those connections can open doors.
It's about showing your passion, proving you have the skills, and that your background brings something unique to the table. Because whether you're aiming for psychologist, kinesiologist, whatever it is, it's about finding the right fit for you.
100%. It's not about checking boxes on a resume. It's about finding work that lights you up, where you can use what you know to make a real difference.
Perfectly said. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of psychology careers. Who knew it was so vast and varied?
Right. We've covered those diverse roles, the crucial skills, those specializations, and even how AI is changing the game. It's a lot to take in.
And we even uncovered some unexpected career paths for psych majors, proving that this degree can take you in some pretty amazing directions.
Absolutely.
But no matter what, never lose that fascination with the human mind.
Never. Whether you're pursuing a career in psychology or just curious about what makes people tick, that journey of understanding ourselves and others, that's where the real magic is.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. Until next time, keep those brains engaged.